Hello everyone, I am Sai and welcome back to my channel Sai Tech. In today's video to compare the Poco F3 GT versus the Poco X3 Pro device. So which phone is the best option to buy? So right now a lot of users are really confused whether to spend the extra money on the Poco F3 GT or should they buy the X3 Pro device, because the price range is not that much significant. Right now the Poco X3 Pro you can get it for about 17,200 rupees if you use the bank discount cards. That is a 6GB RAM variant, and the Poco F3 GT you can get for about 25,999 rupees, which is a 6GB RAM variant which I am trying to talk about. So overall there's a price difference of 8,000 rupees price difference is there from the Poco X3 Pro to the Poco F3 GT device. The reason I said 17,000 is because right now during the Flipkart big savings dates available for about 17,999, and if you use the ICICI bank cards you can actually get the discount. That's also another advantage with this phone. That's also benefit is there with this Poco F3 Pro X3 Pro device. So even the Poco F3 GT also got advantage of 1,000 instant discount if you use ICICI Bank. So overall it comes close to, I think, 7,000 to 8,000 difference will be there between these both phones. Let's start with the performance first. So is it worth spending that much money on the Poco F3 GT or not? Because the Poco F3 GT has got the Dimensity 1200 and the Poco X3 Pro has got the Snapdragon 860 chipset. So yes friends, in terms of the performance wise, you will definitely feel the difference. The Dimensity 1200 is slightly faster than the Snapdragon 860 chipset. So I do have the Snapdragon So right now I do have the Dimensity 1200, which is the Realme X1 Max. You can see the difference in the Android benchmark score. You can see difference of close to, I think, 1 lakh difference can be there between both phones, not only in terms of the benchmarks. So even in terms of the speed test and in the RAM management test, I did find the Dimensity 1200 is slightly faster than the Snapdragon 860 chipset. So for the performance wise, absolutely friends, the Dimensity 1200 is the best. But for the gaming, what about the gaming? So regarding the Battlegrounds mobile game, right now the 90 FPS is supported in the Dimensity 1200, but only in the Realme X1 Max. So only the Realme X1 Max got the update, but the Poco F3 GT still, I think it's running only normal settings on HDR and Ultra, not with HDR and Extreme. Maybe with the future updates you might get that kind of facility. That's also another thing you should definitely remember in the Poco F3 GT. And X3 Pro has got smooth and extreme HDR and extreme supported, and if you try to use any kind of config file, you will be able to play at 90 FPS in this phone as well. That is another advantage which you do have. And if you do the boot loader and if you try to install any custom ROMs, then you can actually get the 90 FPS supported in the Poco X3 Pro device. That's also another thing. So overall, in terms of the performance wise, definitely the Poco F3 GT slightly got advantage in terms of the really good processor than the Snapdragon 860. So Snapdragon 865 is better than the Dimensity 1200, but when it comes to Snapdragon 860, Dimensity 1200 is slightly better. Yes, that's absolutely. And next, in terms of the RAM management and UI, I think both phones, they do have the same kind of RAM management and the same kind of UI, so it's nothing much difference you can actually expect in the RAM management. So that's another thing you should definitely note down. And next, regarding the display, so whereas the Poco X3 Pro has got the IPS LCD panel display, and this Poco F3 GT has got the AMOLED panel display. And Poco X3 Pro, this Poco X3 Pro has got the 240Hz touch sampling rate, and the Poco F3 GT will be having the 480Hz touch sampling rate. Some people, they did say that 480Hz it's useful only for gaming when you use the game turbo. That's another thing you should consider. For the gaming, definitely you get the slightly better advantage in terms of the Poco F3 GT. Not only that, you do get the really 10-bit color display as well. And in every segment, I did see the Poco F3 GT is improved. In the display, refresh rate is kind of same, 120Hz refresh rate. There's nothing much special. But the specialty lies in the turbo AMOLED panel and 480Hz touch sampling rate, slightly better. That's also another advantage. And HDR10 place, and everything is kind of really same to each other only in terms of the AMOLED panel and 480Hz touch sampling rate is slightly better in the Poco F3 GT. So in terms of the camera friends, the Poco F3 X3 Pro will be having the 48 megapixel camera lens, and the F3 will be having the 64 megapixel camera lens. So maybe the F3 might have the slightly better camera, but I need to test it once I get the phone. Only then I'll be able to test the camera performance. I cannot come right now into the conclusion. So definitely I'll try to order the phone as soon as possible, so I'll be able to make the review for you all. So next, regarding the build quality. So build quality is another biggest advantage for the Poco F3 GT. Yes, so we do have the aluminum body frame as well. That's also another thing. And not only that, even we do have the gaming triggers. So some people, they don't like the mag look triggers because that's not an advantage for the gaming. Compared to gaming, that is the reason they are not much interested in the triggers. But that's also, you do have the advantage. And RGB logos on the back side, that's also another thing you do have advantage. So in terms of the build quality, this phone has got really good aluminum frame. That is the one thing which I did like in terms of the build quality mainly in this phone. But whereas the Poco X3 Pro, which has got very normal basic build quality only, which is quite similar to the previous Poco X3. There is nothing much difference you can actually expect from this phone in terms of the build quality, and it's also slightly heavy. And even though both phones they do have the same kind of battery, but still this phone is slightly less weight than this Poco X3 Pro. So in terms of the battery and the charging, the both phones they do come to close to a 5000 mAh kind of battery capacity only, but the charging speed is slightly faster in the Poco F3 GT, but that doesn't mean the phone is charging fast. The Poco F3 GT also takes same amount of time, I think close to 1 hour of time to charge this phone, because the charging is not that speed to maintain the temperature low. That's also another thing. Even the Poco X3 Pro also takes kind of close to that kind of similar time only for charging. So in terms of the charging speed, you may not notice much difference. Only 15 minutes of difference can be there between this both phones because of the fast charging capabilities. And in terms of the connectivity wise, I think the Poco F3 GT is slightly advantageous because of the 5G. We do have only two 5G bands in this phone, and one more thing, there is no 3.5mm jack. So 3.5mm jack is also not there in this phone. That's also another disadvantage in the Poco F3 GT. If they include the 3.5mm jack, that would be really great. And we do have the triple mic setup. As you can see, 3 mic setups we are having in this phone. That's also another really great thing. And the Wi-Fi gaming antenna. The Wi-Fi is also another main issue in the Poco X3 Pro device, because in the Poco X3 Pro, what happens, let me try to show you friends, the Wi-Fi is not that great. Let me explain you what is happening. If you try to connect to the 2.4 GHz, so the transmit link speed only 144 Mbps. If you are having single band Wi-Fi connection, not dual band, single band, so then you experience the slightly low speeds. If your internet speed is close to 200 Mbps, this phone can get only 140 Mbps. That's it. It cannot go higher. That's the one thing which is a problematic in this phone. But in the Poco F3 GT, you don't have that kind of problems, I think. So hopefully we will be able to connect with the high speeds. So this is what I'm trying to show you friends, exactly same Wi-Fi network connected both phones, as you can see, same Wi-Fi network, but I'm getting 300 Mbps in other phones, like Realme X1 Max, Mi11X device, I'll get 300 Mbps, but in this phone only 144 Mbps. So this is what happens. So you will definitely experience slightly low internet speeds if you're trying to use a Poco X3 Pro device. That's also another one thing you should know about. So this is the complete conclusion about this both phones. I think overall for the price point, in each and every segment there is a really great improvement, yes, in the phone. So except in terms of the refresh rate, there's no change. In terms of the battery capacity, also no change, but there's a change in the performance. Performance is slightly improved, and touch sampling rate is also improved. Camera also got improved. Build quality also got improved. So all these factors makes, I think maybe the Poco F3 GT is quite good option. But one thing, if you don't want triggers, and if you don't want this kind of build quality, and if you're okay with the Snapdragon, even Snapdragon 860 is also really good in terms of the optimization, no issues, then definitely the Poco X3 Pro is also really ultimate option. Below 20,000, that's really good deal as well friends right now. For the 17,000 you can actually buy if you use some kind of discount cards. So this is a complete review about this both phones in terms of the comparison. So in case if you have the money to spend, then go for the Poco F3 GT. Otherwise you can definitely choose the Poco X3 Pro, and you can be definitely happy, and you can be pro gamer as well by playing in this phone. That's also another thing which I thought of just mentioning. So thank you for watching this video friends, and see you in the next video. Until then, stay tuned for more updates. Meanwhile, bye.